going, everyone? Hope you've been enjoying the content so far. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's tuning in, and I just finished this morning watching the first two episodes, or the first part, I think they're calling it, of 2 episodes of The Last Dance, with Michael Jordan and the famous Bulls that won, that three-peated twice. It's awesome. One topic I look to cover is the greatest NBA duos of all time. A lot of people think that the Showtime Lakers were the greatest duo with Kareem and Magic. Some people think, the Bulls were with Scottie and Michael. And personally, I love it. I deviate to choose Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal as the best duo of all time, but I'm looking into doing some more research. Obviously, Moses Malone and Julius Erving, who are 2 of the most dominant players in NBA history. They were dominant in the ABA before the ABA and NBA merged in 1976, so they're one of the greatest duos of all time, and Kevin McHale and Larry Bird, so looking to get to that soon. But for you CFL fans, to get focused on the right sport, as many of you know, I used to help out with the Argos. Jim Barker, the former GM, brought me to practices, and I was able to, for about one season, be on the field with some of the players and take part in a training camp and understand what goes on in a franchise. He was lucky enough to take me under his wing, and I obviously can't talk about things that would go on with the team, but it was a great experience. A lot of those guys acted as a father that I never knew, as I don't know my dad, but a lot of those guys in that locker room helped me be the man that I am today. So thank you to all you guys. I appreciate it, and even guys when I wasn't working around with the Argos, when I was doing other work for people in the CFL. Thank you to those people, as well as the players that I was able to meet and interact with. Every one of you. There's so many, and I hope to feature many of those people on some of the upcoming shows. So thank you. But yeah, onto the topic. So about a week ago, the CFL posted a list of, or a few pictures, I believe, of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game in the CFL. And I was reading the comments, I found some of them interesting, and shout out to Chad Cackert. Loved his list of Mitchell Gale and Trev Harris and Zach Caleros and Ricky Ray, and I might be forgetting one other person, and people are all mad about that, not understanding that all those guys were his teammates, and they're all great guys. Those 4 guys, I'm forgetting the 5th guy, but those 4 guys are all great guys, and so some people got to lighten up, but a lot of interesting lists. There's obviously so many great CFL quarterbacks, and I think it's hard to pick a perfect list, because it's one of those where there's just 10 guys that all 10 of them could be in a top 5 list, and it's just impossible to fit them all in there. But you have to pick 5, and I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do it. Many of these guys played before I started watching CFL football, so it's a little bit difficult for me to understand some of those old timers and to what they brought to the game, but they all have tremendous accolades. That the ones that I'm going to mention. The first one is a quarterback which I saw play, I believe, in my first CFL game that I attended in 2007 or in 2006, which is one of the only the only quarterback in CFL history to win a Grey Cup with 3 different teams. He led, I believe he's number 2 now on the all-time passing yards list in the CFL behind Anthony Calvillo. He is a great guy. I've had the opportunity to do some work for Anthony Cannon, who works with Damon Allen and his QB9 Academy. Shout out to both you guys, Anthony Cannon, former NFL CFLer. Shout out to Damon Allen, tremendous all-around athlete in the CFL and could have been a great MLB pitcher. But both of those guys are not only two phenomenal athletes, but they probably are the two best trainers in terms of football and the programs that they've built, maybe across Canada. I've been around, as I said, I work with Anthony Cannon, and the work that he does at the Athlete Matrix, and the work that he does with the IDFFL, which shout out to Maurice Mann and Jordan Younger, two other guys who helped found that, also phenomenal football coaches. Jordan Younger's now with the CFL with Winnipeg. I believe he's still with Winnipeg, and Maurice Mann moved back to California, and he's doing some training there with Get Better or Get Beat. So he's a phenomenal athlete, phenomenal trainer, and just a shout out to those two guys. But as well as the other two guys, Damon Allen and Anthony Cannon. If you're a youth football player, you're looking to put in some work, those are the two best guys in the business. And like I said, Damon Allen's my greatest, in my opinion, the greatest QB who ever played, greatest CFL QB of all time. And his numbers speak for himself. He's an MOP as well, most outstanding player. And like I said, very unique to see a quarterback first win a Grey Cup with Edmonton. I believe he only lost one Grey Cup because he won 4. He won one with Edmonton in his first stint, and I believe he won one with Edmonton. He went to Ottawa, then he went to Hamilton, then he went back to Edmonton. He won another Grey Cup. Then he went to BC. He won a Grey Cup there. And then BC trades for Dave Dickinson, who's now the Calgary Stampeders head coach, also a great CFL quarterback in terms of all-time best CFL quarterbacks. So in 2004, I believe, he gets traded to the Toronto Argonauts because Dave Dickinson goes to BC. And he plays about 3 years for the Argos, I believe, 2004 to 2007. In his second last year in the CFL, guess what? Toronto goes up against BC in the Grey Cup, and I believe Damon Allen scored 2 touchdowns in that Grey Cup, and ended up winning it for his team in his 4th Grey Cup win, first with the Argos. And this was kind of how I got into football, is just seeing the greatness of Damon Allen. He's a phenomenal athlete, phenomenal thrower of the ball. Probably the best QB to ever rush the ball in the CFL. I believe he's the all-time leader in yards for rushing for QBs, and I know he's up there in terms of, in general, of the top rushers all time. Like I said, second all-time in passing, first all-time in rushing for QBs. Can't really go wrong with Damon Allen at 1. I'm pretty comfortable with this pick now. Ordering the rest of them is very difficult, along with ordering Damon Allen at 1, because the next guys I'm about to mention, most of them were mentioned at number 1 as well. Number 2 for me is Warren Moon. Warren Moon is, to my understanding, the only player to win an MVP in the NFL, as well as a most outstanding player in the CFL. And Warren Moon is a 5-time Grey Cup champion. He played 6 or 7 years in the CFL, and he won 5 straight Grey Cups under Hugh Campbell, who's one of the great all-time coaches, and now his son is coaching in the CFL and won a Grey Cup with Ottawa. There's nothing more to say. He's a 5-time Grey Cup champion. He holds multiple records in the CFL, and he's just one of the most dominating players that ever entered the league. And it would be very difficult to not put him in my top 5, and his ability was incredible. Obviously, he built a great legacy for himself, and I believe he won at least 3 or 4 most outstanding players in the Grey Cup of those 5 that he won, showing his dominance. Warren Moon's got to be there, absolutely, and I got to watch some more tape on him because I want to make sure that I'm ordering all these guys right, but he's definitely up there. Number 3. Now this is where it gets really difficult for me because there's about 4 or 5 guys that I could really easily put in the 3 to 5 stretch, and I just don't know how to order them. It's very difficult. And I'm trying to avoid, implementing bias because one of these players was an all-time Argo great. Actually, 2 of them were all-time Argo greats. It's so tough. Number 3, I think I have to go with Doug Flutie. Originally, when I ranked, I had Doug Flutie around 4 or 5, but it's very hard not to put Doug Flutie in the category of the top 5 greatest QBs of all time, and at 3, which is, I think he deserves to be a little bit higher than 5, which is where I originally had him at. Doug Flutie is a 3-time Grey Cup champion, 1 time with Calgary and twice with Toronto in back-to-back Grey Cups in 1967 and 1967. What am I saying? 1996 and 1997. He won the Grey Cup with Toronto in back-to-back fashion. He played about 7 or 8 years in the CFL, and or 7, I believe. After that, he went to go on to play 7 or 8 years in the NFL with the first with the Bills, I believe, first with the Chargers, then the Bills, then the Patriots. So one of the reasons why he never went to the NFL was kind of out of the get-go. He was a top QB, obviously coming out of Boston College, and he was undersized. A lot of scouts thought he was undersized, and he had to go to the CFL and basically show everybody why he's one of the greatest QBs to ever play in the CFL, and certainly a great QB to play in the NFL. And like I said, he played 7 years in the CFL, I believe. He won 3 Grey Cups. He lost twice in the Grey Cup as well, so he was 3 wins, 2 losses, and he lost twice in the West Finals. So he never really didn't go to the playoffs, obviously, and in the CFL he's just a dominating force. And I mean, what more can you say? 5 Grey Cup appearances in 7 seasons, or 8 seasons if I'm mistaken. But he's a dominating player, and again, one of the top rushers among quarterbacks. He might be 2 or 3 as a rusher, as a QB. As a rushing QB, I meant to say he's top 2 or 3, right behind Damon Allen. He had great speed. Again, he had a great arm, and it would be tough not to put him in my top 5. Now, number 4, it's tough because I personally want to put Ricky Ray at 4, but then I also want to put Calvillo at 4, and they're both phenomenal football players. I'm going to put some bias in here, and I'm going to put Ricky Ray at number 4. I don't know if I've ever met Anthony Calvillo. I've maybe talked to him once. I've only heard great things about him as a man. I know his family was from Mexico, and he had to work really hard to get to where he was in the CFL. So I don't want to discredit Anthony Calvillo at all. He's the leading passer all time in yards in the CFL. So you can't really discredit what he's done. Believe he's a 3 or 4 time Grey Cup champion, all with the Montreal Alouettes. He had some all-time battles with Henry Burris. I believe they faced each other in the Grey Cup 4 times, but that's just again, Henry Burris is another QB I'd like to put in the top 5. He would be in my top 10. But Anthony Calvillo, again, led the league in yards in many seasons. He's the all-time leader. Him and Ben Kuhn were a thrill to watch. when they were winning Grey Cups, and again, he won at various different points in his career. I don't believe he ever won a Grey Cup with Hamilton, but I know that's where he started his career in the CFL. So shout out to Anthony Calvillo. He's truly a great player, and it would be unfair not to mention him with the Grey Cups that he has and the records that he holds. So number five would be Calvillo. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. As I said, I'm going to be biased and put Ricky Ray at number 4. It's so tough to go back and forth between those two guys. I want to put Calvillo at 4. I want to put him at 5. I want to put him higher, but I'm going to put Calvillo at 5 to not jump the gun. Number 4, Ricky Ray. And Ricky Ray is a 4-time Grey Cup champion, twice with Edmonton, twice with Toronto. Ricky Ray played from about 5 or 6 years with the Argos, and he had 2 seasons before he went to the New York Jets, 2002-2003. In his first season, he lost in the Grey Cup in 2002 against Anthony Calvillo, and in the second season, Ricky Ray comes back and beats Anthony Calvillo in the next Grey Cup before going to the NFL. In his second season, truly remarkable football player. I don't believe he ever won a Most Outstanding Player award in the CFL, which blows my mind because we're talking about a guy who in, I believe, 2013, the year after the Argos won the Grey Cup, had a 77% completion among his throws. I mean, he's one of the most accurate passers that I've ever seen play in the CFL, and really, I think my two former mentors to me, Maurice Mann and Jason Barnes, I've heard them say that he might be the best quarterback that they've ever played with, and they've been around some elite level quarterbacks in both the NFL and the CFL. So, I mean, that says enough. He also has the highest passer rating in CFL history, I believe, does Ricky Ray. And I know Damon Allen also a very accurate passer too, so I don't want to discredit what Damon did in the CFL. But Ricky Ray is just an all-time great. Like I said, after he had his first stint with Edmonton, he won 1, lost 1 Grey Cup, comes back a year later after his season with the Jets, and wins another Grey Cup. He's only ever lost in the 1 Grey Cup, which was his first Grey Cup appearance in his first CFL season, so you can't really blame a guy for that. But after his last season, I believe he played a few more seasons in Edmonton after he was with the Jets. He would have played 2004 with the Jets and then 2005 to 2011 with Edmonton. So he wins won 1 Grey Cup in between that time period. And then 2011, just an absolute shocking move in the CFL. Jim Barker trades for Ricky Ray. The 2012 Grey Cup's being hosted in Toronto. There's a lot of pressure. It's the 100th Grey Cup. And Jim Barker just builds one of the best teams I've ever seen. In the CFL, the team was just stacked from defense to offense to special teams, with Noel Prefontaine and Swayze Waters, who are 2 of the best kickers and punters in recent time in the CFL, and Chad Owens, one of the most electric returners and electric receivers. So shout out to you, Chad. Hopefully you're watching this. I was on Instagram Live with you the other day, and there's going to be some stuff coming on here about you because you're one of the greatest guys that I met in the CFL that treated me and your family was very nice to me, and I appreciate all that. But you're one of the greatest players in terms of elusiveness to play in the CFL, and you were an amazing player on that team. So shout out to you. Again, Andre Dury, Dontrell Inman, Jason Barnes, Maurice Mann on the offensive side, the offensive line, Jeff Keeping, Chris Van Zyl, Tony Washington, on the defense, one of the best secondaries I've ever seen. I mean, the corners were NFL level corners. Ahmad Carroll and Pacino Horn, Evan McCullough, who played DB, and an amazing front seven. I mean, one of the best defensive lines I've seen. Armand Armstead, top was about to be a top NFL draft pick, top 10, gets injured, and unfortunately comes to the CFL, or didn't get injured. I believe he has his heart issue. He had a heart issue. So that derailed his NFL career. After he'd won that Grey Cup, he signed with the New England Patriots and was set to be a top player with them. Obviously, if you're being recruited by Bill Belichick and you're expected to be, among the active roster, you're not a slouch. Terrific football player. Like I said, Ricky Foley on the other end, and Cleon Lang. There's nothing more I can say about that team. Robert McCune, Brendan Isaac, Jordan Younger, just one of the greatest group of men that have assembled a team, and just great football players. So shout out to that 2012 Argos team that won the Grey Cup. But Ricky Ray was again one of the nucleuses of that team, and what he was able to do. And then 5 years later, in 2017 or 2017, the Argos beat the Stamps and win the Grey Cup, and Ricky Ray was phenomenal in that game. One of those deep throws to DeVere Posey, or maybe I think he had two of them. I know one was for a touchdown, but phenomenal accuracy. I mean, it's very tough to throw football as it is when you got snow hailing down like it was in that Grey Cup. I just don't understand how he's able to make some of those throws. So he's number 4, like I said. Calvillo number 5. Some of the guys that I would put on that honorable mention list, the first person I'd have to put is Russ Jackson, because I find it hard not to put Russ Jackson in the top 5. Believe he's a 3-time Grey Cup champion. He's won Most Outstanding Player. He's a legend in Ottawa, a legend in Canadian sport. I would assume he's in the Canadian Sport Hall of Fame. Just seems like a really good guy, and again, phenomenal football player, and was kind of known as one of the great the founders and somebody who elevated the level of quarterback play in CFL history. So Russ Jackson would be an honorable mention. Henry Burris, you can't really go wrong. Grey Cup appearances with Hamilton, one with Ottawa, Grey Cup appearances with Ottawa, Grey Cup appearances with Calgary, won there. So I guess he won a Grey Cup with 2 different teams. Again, that's very difficult to do. He has to be in the top 10. He's one of the top 4 leaders in all-time yards in the CFL. I believe he's Ricky Ray's number 4 on the list. He would be number 3, is Damon Allen's 2, and Anthony Calvillo's 1. So again, he's up there.